Morning, everyone. Hmm,
Morning.
Thank you for
We're,
acknowledging.
we're, we're still hammering out some technical difficulties here in room 514, so
Not a problem.
I'll let you know when we're good on our end. Testing.
I didn't know that I really.
Julie, can you hear us on this end?
I can.
Are we good? Hearing Carl.
I only see you, Dan, though if there's more views of the room, that's the only view I get.
Can you,
Yeah,
will it move around?
I think it's supposed to get wider.
yeah, I think it was just honed in on me because I was the loudest, but if Carl.
I don't know, can you hear us from over on this side? Off camera left.
It is not. Oh, yep, there you go.
I don't know.
Mr. Strickland?
We were doing that.
Madam Chair, it looks like we have a quorum and I think we're ready to go on this end. So whenever you want to get started.
Excellent. We'd like to welcome everyone to the June 8th, 2023 Landmarks Commission meeting in our new hybrid format. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rule of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusal from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located at the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through paper channel have been considered. Proper channels or comments are sending an email to Landmark at clevelandohio.gov address with a comment or letter, calling and or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments to City Hall, 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting.
Just to go over the virtual meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation has concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
I'd like to call the June 8th, 2023 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Benezzi? Mr. Dreyer?
Here.
Mr. Edmond?
Here.
Councilmember Gray? Director Wong? Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trosick?
Here.
And Ms. Trott?
Here.
All right, Madam Chair, we have a quorum. In addition to the commission members, we also have Kevin Roberts, our representative from the Law Department, as well as Jessica Bean, Carl Brunges, and myself from the Landmarks office present.
Excellent. And we'll begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to welcome the first applicant to announce yourself and tell us about your project. The first applicant is located at 1444 West 25th Street, Mural.
Hi, good morning. I'm Mike Sobek. I'm the artist on this project. We're doing a new mural on the West 25th, 1444 West 25th building. Gonna hop to the next slide. Here's some of my past work, just to give you an idea of things I've done, what kind of style of art I do. Next slide. So this is kind of a combination of surreal art and pop art. The mural is kind of based on the TV show Better Call Saul, but it's really more a surreal mural. Next slide. These are the paintings I'm referencing in the mural. Rene Magritte and Salvador Dali are, pretty famous artists from the surrealist movement. So these are, pretty well-known works of art. Next slide. This is the design. So it's got kind of a lot going on, but I tried to really make it subtle yet exciting and fun. So the next slide. This is the wall that the mural's going on. This is a shot of it from West 25th in Detroit. The current mural is by Ryan Janke, and he knows about all of this. We've talked personally, and the building owners spoke with him as well, like over a year ago about this. They did some work on the building, and it kind of ruined the mural, and it just needs to be painted over at this point. There's been tuck pointing, new windows, all kinds of stuff done to the building since the original mural was done. Next slide. I just have a couple more shots to give context of the area. The next slide is the same thing from the opposite side, just to give you an idea of the area. Next slide. So here's what it would look like from that angle to give you an idea. Next slide. And this is what it looks like from the parking lot, where I think most people will see it. Well, I guess I don't know. Next slide. Here's what it would look like from the parking lot. Yep, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. We'll move on to design review and recommendations.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The Ohio City Design Review Committee saw this project last week, and given that the purview of the Design Review Committee and the Commission is limited to the appropriateness of the location and not the content, and given that this is replacing an existing and previously approved mural, the local committee recommended approval as presented.
Okay, thank you. And staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are in agreement with the local committee regarding our purview, and we also recommend approval and to work with the public art coordinator for proper documentation of the existing mural.
Excellent, thank you. And do we have feedback from, is Tara with us today?
Yes, I'm here. I'm in person. Hi, Julie. Yeah, I am in full support of the mural. The one that's existing now is from Cleveland Foundation's Creative Fusion. I believe that was up in either 2016 or 17. And based on the Ryan Janke mural going in disrepair, I think it's nice to see another piece of artwork replacing that. My other thoughts were that I like the way the building architecture is incorporated into the mural and how he used Magritte style and Salvador Dali style to inform the surrealism for this particular mural. I think it's a great addition to the space. The one thing that was mentioned in Historic Ohio City Design Review, which is, we're all interested to see how the scales play out on the rebrush part of the building. But I am in full support. I think it's fun and appropriate. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Then we'll open the floor for commission for questions and comments. Mr. Redmond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also support this. You said you used the word subtle in your description, which is not a word I would choose for this, but I think one of the things, public art can do a lot of things, and one is to offer us surprise and delight, and I think this really does that. This is fun and engaging. I like both I think the Magritte reference will come through. I think, people who are familiar with it will get that. And of course, the pop culture reference and the ice cream cone dropped on the sidewalk, kind of, anybody who's familiar with Better Call Saul, that kind of encapsulates the entire arc of the show, I think. And also, just as Tara said, I see a lot of public art that sort of ignores the architectural features of the building and pretends they're not there. And here you've not just incorporated them, but really, really capitalized on them for your design. I do have two questions. One is just for my curiosity, content related, is whether this is meant to be sort of a commentary on the justice system and sort of warped scales. And that's one. And the other is a little more practical, is how is this applied? Is this a vinyl? Is this directly painted, et cetera? So I support it. I'm curious to know those things. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's more satire than it is, a criticism or anything. It is on a lawyer's office, so I think that's kind of adds like a level of humor to it. But I'm not really trying to make like a grand statement. I think it's more just supposed to be like visually interesting, that more than any kind of statement. And this will be painted. I have done several large portraits before, and even giant ice cream cones. So it's definitely stuff I'm familiar with. But it will be painted. I'm gonna do a fresh prime coat of Loxon that will seal in the concrete, and then we're gonna do the anti-graffiti coat on top after I'm done painting. But it'll be primarily latex paint and acrylic paint on the wall, so it should hold up for a very long time.
I forgot to mention, that I also was in contact with the artist Frank Janke, after the, building renovation came about prior to this mural, and, confirmed with him again that he has, done his documentation of this mural, and he has sufficient notification, as related to the Visual Artists' Rights Act.
Thank you for that update. Anything else, Mr. Redmond, or was that all your questions? Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I will give mine. I would agree with Mr. Edmonds and staff's review. I think because this is a replacement of the mural that's already been approved and in this location, I'm in support of the mural. And I think it is a fun addition to the neighborhood. Any other questions or comments from commission, or would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Edmond?
I move that the submission be approved as submitted.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
As a huge fan of Better Call Saul, yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. What's the timing for the meal replacement?
We're looking to start the last week of June, as long as we can get the parking spots and everything in place. So it'll be, hopefully by mid-July, it'll be totally finished.
Excellent. Excellent. Look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
We'll move on to our next applicant, Helping Six Chimneys, located at 3943 Prospect Avenue, window replacement. I'd like to welcome the applicant. You can unmute your mic. Please announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Hi, this is Jessica Austin, and I also have Carrie Schilling, who is the window project manager.
Good morning. My name is Doug Knupp. I'm the Chief Asset Officer for Help Foundation, which owns and operates Six Chimneys Apartments. And just a quick point of correction, we're at 3907 Prospect, not 3943, if that matters in this instance.
And I believe I may have lost audio.
So we are just going to be replacing the windows with newer windows. Everything will be same color, same size. We're not really making any alterations to size at all. Everything will remain the same. The windows that are there currently are in pretty bad condition. They do need to be replaced. So that's our goal, is to get them replaced for Six Chimneys so we can get this taken care of.
Yeah, there's 157 windows total that we would be replacing. There's about a little under a dozen there now that have already been replaced in the last decade or so. And they were replaced with the same window that we would be replacing with, which is a vinyl window, beige in and out.
Would the group be interested in some background on the building or the services that we operate there?
Yes, that'd be great to give us a little background on the building and or your
Sure.
organization.
Great, no problem. Like I said, my name's Doug Knupp. I'm the Chief Asset Officer at Help Foundation. Help has been providing services to adults who have developmental disabilities since 1965 and opened Six Chimneys Apartments in 1983 as 46 units for supported independent living for these consumers. The building itself was originally built in 1868 by Rockefeller as 6 townhomes, ergo 6 chimneys. I think he probably had, business associates and probably B-list family members staying there temporarily. In the late 70s, we acquired it from Maxine Levin, worked with HUD and the state to rehab the entire property into these apartments, and they were filled with individuals coming out of the state institutions during that process in the early 80s. Since then, it has continued to serve as home for these individuals. We were one of the first big organizations to come back to Midtown at that time, and we've been there and an active member of that community since. The windows in the building are original to that 82, 83 rehab of the property and are in bad shape. I have been trying to get this done for a couple of years as far as financing goes. It is a HUD-supported property. We do receive fees for service for the services we provide to those individuals. And so as a nonprofit, we are very careful about how we spend. We've been working with Joyce on this project now for a number of months to make sure we're doing the right things in the right spaces with the right product. And it is time to get this work done for this property for sure. In working with Joyce and in speaking with the Euclid Avenue Commission, we've determined, the best way to proceed to make it all look uniform and all look clean and tidy and function appropriately. And I think it'll be a vast improvement for the outside appearance of the building in keeping with its current appearance and the way it's looked since 83, which I guess is, 40 years now. So, yeah. We're real proud of the property. We serve all over Cuyahoga County in a number of different ways with individuals, and this is our biggest project here as far as housing goes. And we continue to have faith in it and in Midtown, and want to keep the building looking good and working right.
Thank you for that additional information. Well, I will hold my comments until this time. We'll move on to design review recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Euclid Corridor Design Review District on the 1st. They approved with conditions. Conditions were to paint the transom frames to match the new vinyl window frames and to make sure that the width of the new vinyl window jamb and transom windows match within 1/2 inch. There was a lot of discussion about matching that transom above the existing operable windows to make sure that the entire historic window opening has a cohesive look.
Great, thank you. And staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff had a lot of discussion about this one. We agree with largely with the recommendations of the local committee as far as how to, treat the transoms, and that it should all, look uniform and like that's part of a replacement window. But this is not only in a landmark district, it's also in the Midtown National Register District. Falls into one of those weird categories of being considered commercial based on the number of units it has, but it's not eligible for the storefront renovation program or economic development funding because it doesn't actually have a commercial component. We understand the applicant is a nonprofit and funds are always an issue with nonprofits, but we'd love to see some sort of upgraded window material on the front elevation, although the cost of that would likely be great. And we aren't aware of any funding sources that are out there that might be able to help close that funding gap. We feel that some time and effort should be made to see if there are any potential funding sources. So, I mean, maybe Doug can speak to that a bit, but at this point, staff would recommend tabling this to allow the applicant time to explore potential funding sources to allow for an upgraded window material.
All right, thank you for that summary and those recommendations. We will, before we open the floor for the commission, would the applicant like to respond to staff's question about researching funding sources for an upgraded material?
Sure. I started off at Help Foundation 15 years ago as the fundraising guy. So I can speak to that. We've been through a lot of funding cycles with all sorts of funders in town, all the usual suspects that you're all familiar with. And for matters like this, their response has been perennially, this is a capital project, you need to do a capital campaign, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have determined that the best use of our capital campaign efforts are for expanding our service program reach in other ways rather than HUD-supported housing projects like this. And so through the HUD system, we've applied a couple of times as well and been turned down. We're just not big enough for a lot of HUD projects. There's only 46 units. And so we're already looking at $100,000 plus for this project with the Euclid design suggestions of extending the, and I'm sorry, I'm not conversant in the terminology for windows, extending the side rails all the way up into covering,
Transom?
going around those transom bays. That's going to be an additional $12,000 to $15,000, which I've been speaking with Joyce about. Joyce was chosen as a great supplier, a great vendor to work with, and so they've been very helpful and patient in processing through what the options are for this. So at this point, our design is to replace all the windows and make sure that the coil extends up to go up into those transom bays with those panels per the Euclid Commission recommendations.
All right, thank you for that feedback. We'll now open the floor to the commission for questions and comments.
Madam Chair, I have a question. The windows were replaced in 1983, is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, the existing windows were the ones that were put in when the whole building was renovated.
Right, and what's the material of the windows that were the replacements in 1983?
This is an aluminum frame window.
All right, so it's not part of the historic fabric of the building. I'm assuming they were wood windows when originally constructed.
I believe that's the case, yeah.
And what's the nature of the failure of the aluminum windows?
Well, nobody's in danger. They're not falling out. Many of them have just begun to deteriorate. And getting parts to repair them, the inside sashes, the latches, all of that has become very difficult. And it's time to take them out and replace them with a more efficient window, windows that are easier to open and close. Some of them are becoming bound, so we'll have to adjust that. Some of the double glazing is beginning to fail and fog, and it's every problem you can imagine with a 40-year-old window we are facing in this building. And so some of the more serious issues that have cropped up, we have gone ahead and replaced onesie twosies here and there, but to do the project the correct way, we want to do them all at once and throughout the rest of this year and have that done professionally and completely.
All right, and the color of the aluminum windows, how does that compare with the proposed color?
Or are all aluminum windows being replaced with your taupe vinyl window?
Yes.
And is that the same color as the aluminum, or do we know what the original color scheme was?
I believe the metal windows, they had a darker frame, where the replacements would be beige, which matches the dozen or so that have already been replaced with the beige.
Okay. Understood. All right, Madam Chair,
It will more closely match those large bays out front and the trim of the building.
Okay, that's the end of my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Bob. Sorry, I'm having some allergy problems that are like clogging up my throat here, so I apologize. My only question is, you talked about the transoms and the spandrels that are in there. You're going to extend the vinyl side rails up and have them be the beige color, and the spandrels, will those be the beige or will those be the brown color or black?
Beige.
And your doors, will those be changed at all?
No.
Later this year, I'll be replacing the front door, upgrading that front door as we move to electronic locks with a fob system instead of keys for all sorts of reasons. But the thought was not to change the coloring of the front door.
So those would be replaced with a dark bronze aluminum.
That's the plan right now. If we can't simply upgrade the door in situ, we would then have to, the whole new frame. And of course, as I'm talking, I'm circling it with my mouse pointer that none of you can see. So just that one front door would be upgraded
Dark bronze
and replaced if needed.
Just muted. Madam Chair, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I was trying to, so that everybody didn't have to hear me cough. When the door, you would go for the upgrade of that door, you will need to come back. And at that time, I would also address your doors that have been replaced with the darker spandrel panels also. This is an interesting project because I do support the window replacement for the betterment of the occupants within the building. I do also see staff's opinion here about trying to pursue other funding sources because I think this is in concept. I think this is a wonderful project, and like I said, I'm fully supportive, but it's not, the vinyl does not meet our code requirements for buildings within this district. Knowing you have pursued other options, I don't know if staff has any other feedback of other conversations that they've had of potential other avenues to pursue.
I mean, we're not really aware of any good funding sources. I guess just wanted to hear a bit what they had done as far as trying to walk down that road. It is, it's a lot of windows. It's a lovely building. Yeah, I understand that the final solution may not be an ideal one, but I think with the recommendations of the local committee, it would probably look better than it does now.
Ms. Anderson has it.
I have a couple questions. These windows have lasted approximately 40 years. Do you have any kind of idea of the lifespan of the replacement windows? Is there a guarantee that comes with them?
Yeah, our windows definitely have an excellent warranty. The glass is pretty much warranted forever. Moving parts, pieces, that sort of thing. After a certain number of years, there could be a small labor fee incorporated into it, but the glass itself and any moving pieces, parts of the windows are under warranty.
Do you know how long the warranty is?
As I said, the glass is covered pretty much for as long as Six Chimneys is around. The vinyl frames, they definitely last a lot longer than metal, but the glass itself, which is usually the first thing to fail over time, is covered under warranty and will be replaced if needed.
So are you talking about the seal on the glass?
Yes.
So that you don't fog? Oh, okay, all right. I was just wondering because perhaps a window that would comply with the historic district standards on the front of the building might last longer. So it might be worth the extra investment up front. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, I just have a quick question. Have they priced out a composite or a fiberglass option, and what is the cost differential between the two? In comparison to vinyl?
We've only been looking at vinyl. As just, you know, it's effective, affordable, easy to do, and typically meets all of our needs.
I think that's,
Go ahead, Mr. Burns.
I think that's a missing piece of the puzzle here. Is what's, maybe with the fiberglass, what's your cost differential? Could it maybe bump it up slightly, but might still be within reach? And I think that might be the reason to table it, would be to find out what the cost of those other materials are. We're not going to look for aluminum clad wood because that would probably be very cost prohibitive. But I think we would want to see what a fiberglass option or a composite option would be. And I think if those are all out of the range, then I think it's reasonable and the due diligence has been met to meet our requirements here.
I would agree with that. I think fiberglass and just, you know, I know it is a slightly upgrade, often just 10 to 20% more. But it would be good to understand what the cost difference would be on a building of this size. I'd also recommend that your transoms, for the spandrel panels and whatever solution that we go forward with, are glass spandrel panels versus a vinyl spandrel within the transom area. The framing should be whatever material to match the window itself, either the composite fiberglass or the vinyl, but the spandrel, the dark areas, in my opinion, should be a glass spandrel.
That's the drop ceiling. The ceilings were lowered for sprinklers and stuff. So behind that is nothing. It's
Understand. But a spandrel is not clear glass. It would be a back painted glass spandrel. And I'm sure you said Joyce is your window manufacturer there, does understand what I'm asking for, or recommending, I should say. So with that, I would support, you know, staff's recommendation to table this to complete the due diligence of pricing out a fiberglass composite versus the vinyl to then make a final recommendation of approval or the appropriate material.
Madam Chair, you're just talking about the front facade for the fiberglass?
Well, that's a primary facade that we're looking at right now, correct? Yes, I'd say at least a minimum on the front facade.
Does the applicant agree with the tabling of this project to provide that additional information?
Sure. I mean, if that's the only way forward.
We do think it's.
Madam Chair, I would move to table the project.
Thank you. We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second that. Ms. Carter.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Further discussion, just for the applicant's sake, you know, since this doesn't meet the spirit of our requirements, we do need to validate and go through the due diligence to exhaust all avenues of materials to determine what's appropriate for this building, since it is every case is a case by case in review. But we do need to go through due diligence to understand the cost impacts on a project like this. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion to table passes unanimously.
Excellent. I hope the applicant, if you have any questions related to, the discussion today, please reach out to staff. We'll move on to our next applicant located at 10518 Grantwood Avenue, window replacement.
Yes, good morning. This is Dawn Toth with Window Nation. We were attended a previous meeting and it was determined that
Madam Chair,
Table
sorry,
at the
just
table.
point of order. We need to untable this before it moves forward. So if someone wants to make a motion to untable.
I'll move to take it off the table.
I'll second that.
All right. I'll move forward with roll call. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
I'm going to recuse. I'm sorry, I had to step away to get some drink of water.
All right. Are you recusing yourself from this whole?
I'm going to abstain to the vote.
Abstaining,
Say,
okay.
since I had to
Okay.
step away to get a drink of water.
Okay. The motion to untable passes. So sorry to interrupt the applicant. You can go ahead with your presentation now.
Okay, sorry about that. Dawn Toth with Window Nation. We attended a previous meeting, or I attended a previous meeting, and it was determined that the face of the house needed to remain wood. Vinyl around the other three sides of the house was acceptable. So we went back to the homeowner, and the homeowner basically said he couldn't afford the wood windows at this time. So we removed all of the front face of the house windows. He's going to do that at a later time, but he wants to do the other three sides just for energy efficiency. So the change order has been forwarded to you, basically removing the front vinyl windows, and we're not going to be replacing the face of the house at this time. That's it.
Could you explain the images that are on there? The windows with the check marks are the ones that are being replaced? Is
I'm
that
sorry?
correct? Can you explain the imagery that's on the screen? Are the windows with the check marks the ones you are replacing?
Well, unfortunately, I am not on the computer. I'm actually just on my cell phone. So I'm unable to see the screen. But anything on the face of the house, facing the street, we've removed from the contract on that change order. So the sides and the back of the house is what the customer would like to proceed with. I mean, it's really that simple. We're just taking the face off, the windows off the face of the house because they need to remain wood. And the customer is going to do the face of the house at a later time.
And all windows, including the leaded glass, are currently being proposed for replacement. Is that correct?
Is the leaded glass on the face of the house? We will not be doing the face of the house at all, just the sides and the back.
Okay. I know staff has a little bit of input on here, and maybe they can explain a few of the images. So thank you for the update on your approach. We'll move on to design review recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To review what we talked about previously, the Magnolia Way Park East Boulevard Grantwood Allotments Design Review Committee discussed the replacement here and mentioned the preferred window material of not vinyl, and mentioned the existing casement windows, and had a discussion on where they would go or if they would be salvaged if they were removed. And there was a conversation on replacing windows with the same configuration, as in windows with an oriel remaining with the oriel and not going to a traditional double hung.
Okay, thank you. And staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we saw this case in April, it was tabled so that the window company could have the opportunity to take the commission's feedback to the homeowner and revise their plan, which they've done by essentially removing the front facade from their scope of work. The focus in that meeting was on the proposed vinyl replacements on the front of the house. The current proposal takes that into account. So although the current proposal removes the front of the house from the scope, staff would also like to call attention to the decorative casement windows in the living room and the leaded glass sash that appears to be in the dining room. While these windows are on the side of the house, they're significant and losing them would be unfortunate. So the commission typically allows for vinyl replacements on the sides and rear of a home, but in this case, staff feels that the decorative windows on the side of the house are worthy of preserving. So essentially, we'd be supportive of replacing the simple 1/1 windows as long as the configuration matches the existing. But we'd like to see the preservation of the leaded glass and decorative sash on the sides, which I believe the image there now. I don't know. It's difficult to tell what room that is, if that's the front of the house or if it sounds like that's the dining room, which faces the side. Yeah.
I do have a question, if I could ask. How do we preserve the leaded glass by replacing the window? I mean, you can't preserve it and put a new window there.
That's correct. I guess staff's position
So you're
is
saying
that
the customer needs to just keep the leaded glass old window because it has leaded glass in it and not get a new window is what I'm hearing.
that's the staff recommendation, that anywhere that there's decorative sash or leaded glass, that those windows not be replaced, but those be preserved in place.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation. We're going to move on to commission members' questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, this is Bob Strickland.
Yes,
I very much appreciate the applicant's modification to the scope of work to delete the front facade at this time and do that replacement with the appropriate materials when funds become available. But I agree with staff recommendation that the features of the lead glass windows in the dining room and those flanking the fireplace also warrant special consideration. And I would suggest that those be removed from the scope at this time as well. And that some other retrofit to upgrade those windows would be appropriate when funds become available.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Trosik?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I think my comment was much along the lines of what Mr. Strickland just indicated, but was going to be formed more of in a question. Is there a way, and this is not beyond my expertise, is there a way to, and using Mr. Strickland's word, retrofit those windows that have leaded glass to make them more energy efficient? And I guess that's more of a question than I'm posing than anything. I just don't know, but I would agree with Mr. Strickland's comments as well, if anybody can answer that question for me.
So with a storm window or something to provide the weather efficiency from the exterior, but maintain the original window on the interior?
Yes.
That is one approach that is often used.
If I could interject, yes, we could, a storm window, we don't do storm windows, but a storm window could be added, but that has absolutely nothing to do with energy efficiency. Adding a storm window will provide zero energy efficiency to the opening. I'm just throwing that out there as a fact. I deal with ARBs in Shaker a lot, and we deal with a lot of leaded glass situations similar to this. Again, I don't have the pictures in front of me of his house, but I do recall I've seen the check marks on the photo. And generally what Shaker does is just we delete and get rid of the leaded glass. And they generally, the customer will keep the sashes or donate them accordingly. And I believe that's something we discussed on the first meeting that I was on, that there was the leaded glass and it was a concern, and can he donate them or keep them, preserve them in some way? But, you know, putting a storm window on is basically just a little Band-Aid. So it won't provide him what he's looking to do, which is bring his gas bills down from where they are. I mean, Shaker Heights omits, they allow us to take leaded glass off in, you know, $1 million homes. So I guess I'm just confused as to why you're making this man put a storm window and a Band-Aid on, you know, his current problem. So, but if that's your decision, then I'll have to go back to the customer and let him know that. My only question is, because he's extremely frustrated that this is taking as long as it is. So would we, if we delete the windows that have the leaded glass in the dining room, and again, I'd have to go back and look at them if it's, I believe it was 3, maybe 4. So if we delete those 4, do we have to now come back again to another meeting in a month?
No, I think we are trying to get you through this, the process here and get to a solution that everyone can agree, because we understand the importance of getting this done, especially in this season, so that, you know, if you're going to go through this work, you can achieve the energy savings when you need it in the winter months. So I think that is our goal here, is to try to get to a solution that everyone can be satisfied with, but meets the requirements for, you know, our commission for window replacements.
And I respect and understand that. But again, we've already taken the whole front of the house off. So he's already angry that he's going to have air flying through the front of his house. And, you know, he's concerned that it's really not going to help his situation, but he understands the situation. They have to be what, he just can't afford them right now. So that's why we decided to do the other 3 sides. So just let me know if we need to delete the leaded glass windows or we can replace them with vinyl.
I think I would support, you know, what has been recommended personally also is to, you know, at minimum, these windows need to be, you know, retained and ideally retained in place so that they are, since they are part of the fabric of the house. I would support with the window replacement with the removal of the leaded glass windows till a better solution could be provided. Other questions or comments by other commission members? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd move to approve the project as presented with a requirement that the lead glass windows in the dining room and flanking the fireplace be deleted from the scope of work to be completed in a future phase with the appropriate retrofit solution.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second, Mr. Tarasik?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you for the second. Further discussion? Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing the project move forward, and please, you know, have the owner reach out to staff when he is ready to replace the front windows and to talk about the options there.
Okay, thank you much. Bye-bye.
Move on to our next applicant, St. Ignatius, located at 1911 West 30th Street, Harold Gym and Power Plant Demolition.
Hi, good morning. My name is Richard Klingstern with St. Ignatius. There's several of us here. Father Ray Giow, our president, Mr. Derek Ignatowski, our director of campus operations, and Mr. Patrick Highland from Perspectus Architecture, who will walk us through the presentation. Patrick?
So I will, since many of you saw this, I will continue. I'll kind of go through it a little bit quicker than last time, but if there are questions, we'll be sure to answer them next. So just as a quick reminder, this project will be located in the core of St. Ignatius campus, west of Wasmer Field. That's within the yellow box. Next. Again, just a little bit closer a view of the addition, again, to the west side of Wasmer Field. Next. Just to reorient everybody to the existing campus. I'll just work clockwise from Carroll Gym. So we are proposing removing and demolishing Carroll Gym and the power plant. As we keep going around the clock, Murphy Gym, Sullivan Gym will not be touched. Library will be fully
Excuse me. I have to interrupt. There was some confusion as to who's presenting and who did the introduction. So for our records, we need to know from the individuals representing the applicant who introduced the project and who is speaking at any particular time.
It's difficult to hear.
Yeah, and then also we're having some difficulty hearing. So I don't know if there's a way to speak up or move the microphone closer, but
it's hard to hear you.
Okay, so my name is Richard Klingshirn, Klingshirn. With St. Ignatius High School, I gave the introduction, and Mr. Patrick Hyland, Hyland, with Perspectus Architecture, is walking through the presentation.
So can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay, I moved closer to the TV now. Should I start over, or do you guys understand where we're at?
I think we can, pick up where you left off.
Okay, again, Carroll Gym proposed to be demolished. Power plant proposed to be demolished. Murphy and Sullivan Gym will remain as is. The library building will be heavily renovated, and the addition will be connecting to the library and to the main building with some minimal renovations within the main building. Next. Again, the two buildings are being demolished. Their footprints. Next. The addition, which is being placed where those former buildings, or the future to be demolished buildings, and you can see how it connects to the library. Next. The library, about 30,000 square foot building from the 1980s. Next. Just some closer up images. This is Carroll Gym, I believe built in the 1920s. Next. This is the east facade of the Carroll Gym. Next. The north facade of Carroll Gym. Next. And then some of the interior elevations in the interior courtyard of Carroll Gym. Next. Again, the second building to be demolished is a power plant building and the smokestack. This was built in the 1940s. Next. And this is the west facade from the courtyard view. Next. The east view from across Wasmer Field. Next. And the south facade of the power plant. Next. Then the venerable 1890s main building. Again, we're touching it and lightly renovating it for some infrastructural things. Next. And then you can see the interior facades, so the east facades of the main building. Next. To get a sense of the north facade of the library building on your left there. Next. And the east facade of the library. Next. So the blue box shows the approximate footprint of the addition. It's always a little bit shifting, but that's in essence the size of the addition. Next. Part of the scope is to provide a pleasant outdoor campus space between the addition and the main building. So it'll be a combination of hardscape and softscape. Next. Just to review how the building, the addition and the blocks and stacks. There is no basement to the addition, so it's slab on grade. So that first level is a large cafe space to the south, and then to the north in the floor plan of the addition within the red box. That's a majority athletic suites for admin and a new varsity locker room. And then again, the cafe space. In the library, it's all student focused. It's the library and tutoring area in the existing library. Next. The second level addition are basically classrooms to address many of the liberal arts subjects here. At St. Ignatius, different flexible classrooms. Then back into the library on the left, that is a student counseling area, both college counseling and everyday counseling services for students. Next. The third floor is primarily dedicated to the arts, the fine arts. So we have a series of art studios and making spaces in the orange tone, and then some other flexible classrooms. Next. Then we have arts mezzanine to the north side. This is for designed for advanced art students, kind of their own studio space that overlooks the main studio space. Next. I threw the elevations in there to get a sense of the massive. I think the renderings tell a better story. Next. So the changes you saw from last time, the building became more red brick. Just in discussion with the school and taking in other discussions with the OCI group, we decided to make the building more red brick. So you can see that obviously across the building facade, we chose to use buff material, some cast stone products at the bases of the AMDG mass, the gabled mass, and then the tower mass. From last time, the tower has become, say, a much more prouder structure than the one we had previous. Again, it wasn't last time; it was a little stunted. We let it be more vertical oriented this time. Next. Again, this is the view from across Wasmer Field, looking west. You can see again more of a red brick composition with the grounding of the building with the buff material, which is in reference to the buff base of the main building. Next. Then just another view looking north to south across the facade. Next. An interior look at the courtyard, you can see that when I talk about the mix of soft and hardscape for the campus space. We do have a little porch element on the facade, and then I apologize for the rendering. That's not white material for the bridge. It's just rendered different. It's just spandrel glass, so it'll be a glass umbilical connection on the second and third floor between the addition and the main building. Next. We were asked to just further discuss how we're attaching to the buildings. For the library, everything within the yellow dashed lines needs to be removed. From a code perspective, we basically had to make the addition a separate building due to area requirements and things like that. So we have basically we're building two-hour firewalls at this location to make the building, the addition, code compliant. So the east facade will be torn off. The north facade will be maintained. Next. Then at the main building, the bridge, so on the left, you see a section through the bridge looking at the main building. The red boxes show you where the doors, the double doors are that we're tacking into the main building. We don't, just due to the existing conditions and where we have to put lintels, it'd be very hard to keep, we're investigating how much of the existing building material we can maintain, but you can see the doors are kind of wide, and once we get into that, a lot of that existing fabric has to be demolished to make the connection. However, anything outside the envelope of the bridge, outside where it's kissing the existing building, we're not altering the main building whatsoever. So again, the middle image shows the yellow box where the bridge is coming in at that location. And then the plan on the right just shows you how we're snuggling it in. We're trying into the recessed plane at those two windows there, and trying to keep it tight so we're minimally disrupting the main facade. Next. Again, materials are selected to emulate to reference the main building. So I have red brick and buff material. Next. Miscellaneous metals, downspouts, gutters will be brown or bronze type. That'll be the windows, the storefronts, the curtain walls will be this color. Next. And then the accoutrements around the tower will be a green metal to mimic patinaed copper. Again, we wish we could afford copper, but not in the cards at this moment. Thanks. Next. And then for the mansard roofs, it'll be a dimensional shingle. And one that I forgot to mention on the tower, we do intend to do a polychromatic banding around the tower element in reference to the main tower at St. Ignatius. Next. These are just next. Again, just shows you the storm lines will capture water and run north to Carroll Avenue to the existing sewer that runs there. So all that's running to the north. Next. Area of disturbance diagram to show you what is disturbed and what will be reset during the project. Next. And that's it.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to Design Review Committee's recommendations.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this one will be 2 motions and 2 votes. We'll have one for the demo and one for the new construction. The Ohio City Design Review Committee recommended approval of the demolitions, and then approval of the new building as presented, with the consideration to utilize cast stone instead of brick for the base material of the addition, and then that the lintels should extend past the edges of the window openings so they look like functional lintels.
All right, thank you. And staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff is in support of the proposed demolitions for the power plant in the Carroll Gym. Finally, the tower element doesn't compete with the original tower, which is nice, and looks like there's minimal damage and it's a sensitive addition, although we did question the location of the bridge since there's existing windows and then a bricked-in window area next to it. But otherwise are in general support of the addition and demolition.
Madam Chair, it looks like Nate Lull from Ohio City Inc. is here to provide, I guess, some feedback from the community and or OCI itself.
Excellent. Thank you, welcome, Mr. Lull.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Nate Lull, Neighborhood Planning Manager at Ohio City, Inc. I just wanted to quickly add in that this project was presented at our February community meeting, and no concerns were raised there. And I believe that the applicants have also been working with the local block club in the area, and I have not heard any concerns or complaints from them either. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lull. And we will open the floor then to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Evan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the changes, and I think the sort of tripartite massing of those three major elements is really working well. I would echo the design review comments of at least studying, and this is a good view to look at it, at least studying the cast stone on that front at the base. Not sure which is better, but I think it's worth studying, and also extending the lintels beyond the width of the windows, I think would help also that idea that it's a lintel, but also just the overall kind of texture of the facade. So those are both worth studying. I had a question on the bridge. So I understand the bridge is, basically all glass, right? It's spandrel and then vision glass. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what color is the spandrel glass?
We have not gone that, we've not selected yet. Personally, I like spandrel glass that tries not to look like spandrel glass, but it's we can do. So, but we have not selected a color yet.
Okay, I think that's definitely an area of study. I think doing the bridge in glass is the right move here. The contrast and the, this is clearly a modern piece that's attaching to the historic building. I think you should consider not having the brick piers as the columns that are supporting the bridge, but something that's more in keeping with the architectural language of the bridge itself. So, maybe round steel columns, something like that. Again, it's part of that new piece that's inserted, so I think it should be of that language. My other question there is the bridge cantilevered to the existing building, or is it structurally attached to the existing building?
The piers are carrying the load and it cantilevers over to the main facade. So we're not resting the bridge in any way on the main building.
So it's really just an expansion joint between the two.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, other than that, I think this is quite nice. But I certainly would ask you to consider something more modern looking for the columns that are supporting the bridge.
If I could just respond why we did it out of Mason, we were concerned about that because although it's showed as right now as a beautiful July day with chairs, we're concerned because there will be vehicles that'll have to get in and out of here or just wear and tear. So we're concerned if we did a more of a steel or metal enclosure, it would get beat up more. So that's why we kind of lean towards using masonry. We'll consider, but we can consider that.
Yeah, or maybe a very clean concrete pier.
Correct. Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Other questions and comments from the commission? I will insert mine now. I support and I appreciate the applicants on listening to our feedback on some of the architectural elements previously, especially the tower. I like the new configuration. I think it shows some reference to the obviously iconic tower, but is different enough that it's not trying to compete with it. I like the adjustments in the brick material, but also think it is worth studying the brick versus the cast stone base for the building, just to see how the massing will feel with that revision. And overall, in the lintels, the comment on the lintels I think is also a good one. And so that it does, since there is so much texture and depth to the existing buildings across the entire campus, we want to make sure this one has as much detail and depth as everything else. So, but I'm overall in support of the project. The one thing that I know the community has brought up is which is not part of the purview of this project, but do want to have it on the records, is this view is a good one along West 28th Street that with the continued expansion of St. Ignatius, that a public sidewalk along 28th Street would be appreciated because of the amount of people that do now walk and bike this area. So although it's outside the purview of this project, I do think it's warranted to bring up for consideration in a future date to replace that sidewalk. Those are all my comments. Other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Edmund?
I'd like to move that I'm sorry, this is for the demolition?
Yes, I'm sorry, we should, we'll need two motions, so why don't we start with the demolition?
I move that the demolition be approved.
Right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on the demolition? Right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Edmund?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trosik?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion to approve the demolition passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the new construction. Any further discussion on the new construction? Or would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Edmund?
I would move that the project be approved as presented with the considerations that the proposer investigate potential for cast stone at the base, expanding the size of the lintels, and potential other materials for the columns supporting the bridge.
Okay, thank you. Motion with conditions. Do we have a second? Mr. Tarasik?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Edmund?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trosik?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing your project move forward. What's the timing of the new construction?
If all goes well, construction of the project, the renovations probably will start in January of 24. With the addition, you'll start seeing steel going up probably summer of 24 with anticipated completion for fall semester 25.
Excellent. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Edmund, before I move on to the next applicant, I see your hand still up. Was that just a thank you? Just want to make sure if I wasn't overlooking that. Then we'll move on to our next applicant, 50 West, located at West 50th Street and Lorraine Avenue, renovation and new construction.
Good morning, everyone. This is Chad Curtis with My Place Group. Happy to present with you guys our 50 West project. It's located between 50th and 52nd on Lorraine. It encumbers the front on Lorraine on that block and then wraps around on the sides. We can go to the next slide. You can keep going past there. This picture, well, yeah, this one we can start here. This references the existing site. In the upper left picture, you can see that our property is located kind of right in the middle of that. We've got two historic buildings on the left side that we plan to keep. There is an older structure in the middle of the property that we plan to demo. And then there is also a house on the back of the two historic buildings on West 50th that is our intention to demolish as well as part of this project. And I guess if you want to go up to the slide before this. This is an example of some of the context of building heights in the neighborhood. We've worked this project through the different neighborhood organizations, obviously the design reviews previously. Some of the feedback we've heard, we've implemented a lot of feedback, but giving you a scale of height, one of the things we've done on the project you'll see is step it back on the 4th floor off of Lorraine, kind of giving it a little softer feel to the street. But we can keep going and you'll see with the pictures. Yeah. Our plan here shows the landscaping. So Lorraine has a significant corridor improvement plan that's coming. So what we do here would most likely be in planter boxes on the Lorraine facade. We don't want to have trees installed that will then get ripped out. But along the sides on 50th and West 52nd, our intention is to put a tree lawn in, a grassed one on West 50th that's not currently there, and install several trees. On West 52nd, there are a couple existing trees. You see those as the larger circles, and we plan to keep those as well. And then add some more new trees along that part as well. Overall, there are about 52 parking spaces, and then about 44 bike spaces. I'm sorry, 62 parking spaces and 44 bike spaces on the ground floor. Listening to feedback, we've heard we had originally planned the exit of the garage to be off of West 50th. We flipped that over to West 52nd. One of the other things too, you'll see in the next slide, showing that the setback that we've made the garage entrance is pretty significant, so there shouldn't be any pedestrian interactions that are right away as soon as a car pulls out. They'll have plenty of time. We've widened the opening, you can see that, so that you have plenty of angles to see people pulling in and out and pedestrians walking by. It's a dead-end street, but there's still some other people on it. This is a good perspective of what I'm describing. We've got bike storage right on both sides of the garage entrance, so easy access for people to come in and out with their bikes, kind of going along with the Lorraine bike corridor they're looking to put in when we merge that. We could go to the next slide. This is our typical floor plan on the 2nd floor. You can see there's apartments and then an amenity deck that face the south. That amenity deck and some of the renderings you'll be able to see, we've heard feedback about just screening it and kind of giving it its own privacy, so we've done that. The area you see towards the north corner, towards the upper right of this, is the existing buildings. So we're going to utilize what's there currently and then add on top of that the next floor plan. If you go to the next slide, you can start to see where we've got some amenity decks up there, primarily over the corner. That'll be an open space looking out towards downtown, looking down the street. The area that says club room, that will be a space built on top of the existing building that's more on the Lorraine side of things. And then you can see we've got some setbacks from that new facade on Lorraine, as well as some patios area. You'll see more detail on the following slides though. Again, this is just another shot, key piece, that community room for the amenity deck on the corner will be a 2-story room. So again, giving a really dramatic feel. This also shows how we've set back the building off of Lorraine. That is patio on the front facing Lorraine. So set back a nice distance to give that relief off the street. We can go to the next. Yeah. Next slide. So this is another good elevation. We've made a lot of changes to the project as we've heard different bits of feedback. Everything from simplifying the materials and the color selections, changing the balconies, which you see here on the Lorraine facade. We took off overhanging balconies and put French balconies, so they still have openings to the street, but not an overhanging appearance off the building. Along the sides, which you can see in some of these other elevations, there is a balconies that do overhang on those areas. On this north elevation as well, one big point of conversation earlier, kind of in the middle right side of the building, was siding and a different color. So we've simplified that. We've added a brick material on that, and then that's now a nice element. On the existing buildings on the corner, you can see where our plan is to restore the storefronts that were there. Do our best to bring them to what we think they were prior, but generally keeping a similar facade along all the new storefronts and the old ones going down the lane, so it feels connected, contiguous. Also not adding too much out of the rhythm, but adding some new flair to the existing. Again, on the west elevation, on the bottom part of this picture, that shows the West 52nd side of the building. Again, the garage is in the middle of that. You can see the balconies on the fourth floor wrap around, giving some setback on that side as well. We could go to the next page. Again, this south elevation is if you were looking north, the back of the property, where there's a church and commercial area, basically looks at south of the landmarks district as well. The east elevation, on both 50th and 52nd, one of the things I really like about this project is we're going to be adding walk-up units. So there'll be more pedestrian access and interaction right off of the street, right off of the sidewalk, really bringing people right to the street. Next slide, please. It's just another corner shot of the property, giving you a better perspective of how the building steps back. Go to the next one. This is the view from 52nd. You can go to the next one. This is showing how it interacts on West 52nd Street. You can go to the next slide. This is West 50th. Let's see, let's zoom in on this. So I'm going to let the architects go in detail and answer any questions, then I'll jump in as needed on the different materials.
Hi, so this is Evgeny. Sorry, I don't know if I was supposed to raise my hand, but this is Evgeny with MA Design, the architects on the project. So for the most part, for the existing portion of the building, we are going to try to maintain the materials that are there regarding the brick and lintels and everything. For the storefront and for the glass. For the storefront, we're looking at Conair with the black finish, and for the windows, we're looking to have aluminum-clad wood windows for the renovation portion along the front there. For the rest of the building, the color changes to a more tan color, and for the most part, for the lower portion of the building, we have two types of brick that we're using. And for the upper portion, we are leaning towards sort of fiber cement lap siding around most of the along the upper portions of the building. And I know that it's been noted that requested that we set back the glass along the amenity area over the existing building, and I would like to note that it looks like the way that it's rendered, it looks more significant than it is. If you look at the material callouts later in the presentation, the glass railing is set back, and it is also a much more transparent and less significant appearance than what it appears to be in the rendering. So from the street, it shouldn't be very noticeable. Yeah, so going around the building here, we sort of have an overhead door that's set back farther within the garage. So there should be a fair amount of warning for any pedestrians crossing the street or passing in front of the building, and likewise for any cars pulling out. So there shouldn't be any unexpected interactions between pedestrians and the vehicles coming in and out of the building. Um, so one thing I will note, it has not been updated in the presentation, but we are moving away from the white siding that's shown here on this elevation, and that is going to be moved to something a little bit darker, matching what we have in other locations, such as the Monterey top finish. Yeah, likewise over here on the back, we have sort of reduced a little bit of the brick, and we have gone more towards the siding material here. Um, and that sort of that sort of wraps around into the inner courtyard area as well. And on the lower levels, we have a sort of perilla pattern screen right there. We are still trying to nail down a more definitive pattern that might be more um, interesting or more historically significant. But for now, we have a perilla pattern screen along the garage there um, at the lowest level. And on the east elevation here, for the most part, we do have the brick material here, but I will note that the white portion, once again, is not will not be white in the final project, and it will be replaced with something more like the Monterey top color. And just a few enlarged images here just to show some more detail of some elements. Here you see some of the inner courtyard. Once again, the material will not be the white siding, but instead be more of the Monterey top or tan siding there. If you go to the next one, there should be another amenity section as well, or elevation. Sorry, next slide. Yeah. So in here you can see where the transition is from sort of the area that projects backwards to where we have our actual enclosed area. But once again, the materials, though will be a transition, it will not be the white siding. Instead, it will be the tan siding there. All right, next image. And just sort of going through, showing some of the enlarged views of the existing building here. So once again, just to note, the way that the glass railing over the amenity area on the existing building is rendered is not the way that the final image will, it's not the way that the glass will actually look there, the glass railing, I mean. That's just for rendering purposes to make it more visible, so you know what we're dealing with. But the actual appearance of the glass is better represented by an image later in the presentation, showing what the glass actually looks like when it's installed. All right, going on to the next slide. Just going through, calling out some of the different types of materials, finishes. Not going to get too into the weeds on these. Next slide. And some of the details on what's happening in different areas, sort of how we're handling the trash room entrance, some of the storefronts. If you'll notice, the storefront's a little bit different between the existing building portion and the new additions. All right, and next slide. And just going through, calling out some of the materials, and so the image here does show a little bit more clearly what the glass would look like at the railing, but there's also an actual product sheet that'll show what it looks like when it's actually installed with an actual image. But yeah, so this is a view from 52nd and Lorraine, just showing a little bit more detail of what you would see from that side. going on to the next image. And over here we have the view looking straight on over the garage entrance. So once again, that white siding will be replaced with a tan color. And right here we have both the entrance to the garage and right on either side we have the bike storage there as well. So going on to the next image. And over here we have the view looking directly towards the existing corner building with the other with the new additions behind it pulled back further. And next image. And over here we have the 50th Street addition showing some of the interaction, a little bit of the walk-up unit entrances and the trash collection door there. I will note the little the little brown planters with the spikes. Those are intended to be representative of planters with trees or other plants in the future. So don't get too distracted by the spiky shape, please. Moving on to the next image. So here we have sort of a section going through roughly what we expect, the way we would interact with the existing building, where we would have sort of the pergola on top, pulled towards the back, some of the apartments, some of the one-bedroom apartments looking out over it from the side or from behind, with the new amenity deck there, and you can see that we have the railing pulled back a little bit from the actual parapet, so it's not in line with it. And from the street, it should be less visible than it would be if it was pulled forward. I will note the actual difference in height between the parapet and the floor level might be more significant than we have shown. So you might actually see less of that glass railing than what is indicated. Moving on to the next image. And here we have just some of the products shown, and you can see in the bottom right what the glass actually looks like when it's installed. Moving on, some of our materials for the pergola, the screen for the garage, the entrance gates that we are proposing, and moving on. And just next few images are just some details showing how some of the connections and interactions work, where the materials transition. I will not go into each individual ones unless you'd like me to, but we can just sort of glance through these. Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask, but yeah, that gets into the details. And over here we have just a review of some of the buildings that that are existing on the site that we are demolishing. So towards the middle of our site, we do have this white building, and this building's been around for a very long time, but it's been vacant for, I believe, and Chad, you might have to correct me on this, but I believe it's been like over 20 years that it's been vacant.
This building's actually been occupied. It was the corner brick ones.
Okay. Sorry, my apologies. But yes, this is the other building that we are demolishing towards the back of the site. This one's actually not a part of the historical preservation district, but it is being demolished, so we thought we would include it just for reference. And the rest of the presentation, for the most part, is just going through specifications on and cut sheets for the various materials that we are proposing for the project. All right. And I don't know if anybody has any questions. Please feel free to ask. Happy to address anything.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to design review recommendations.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to again thank Chad and Yev for providing, working with staff and providing the level of detail that you presented today. It certainly makes it easier to see what the project will really look like. That being said, this is like the St. Ignatius project, will be 2 motions and 2 votes, one for the demo and one for the new construction. The Ohio City Design Review Committee saw this project last week, voted to recommend approval of the demolitions and then approval of the new construction with the condition that there be no vinyl and no white siding on any portion of the building. There were also some comments that didn't make it into the motion, that the parapet area in the middle, where it's kind of the buff brick on Lorraine, that should be a solid parapet. The drawings show masonry piers with the glass panel railing system between it, but yeah, the committee thought it might look more contextual if the whole parapet was masonry. There are also some comments that they would like to see the hardy board panels between the windows removed and just that become masonry. But yeah, they voted to approve. I think you're muted, Julie.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Mr. Lal.
Good morning, everybody. Nate Lowe with Ohio City Incorporated. I just wanted to shed some light on what type of community process has happened around this project, and also some of the comments that we've heard throughout the process. This project was presented at our February community meeting at Urban Community School. There were also 2 additional meetings that Chad's team hosted at their offices for folks to engage with them on the project. And then we also hosted an additional meeting with the council member on this project on April 6th to hear concerns or comments from neighbors. Additionally, this is another project that we've posted to Co-Urbanize since it started. So this was posted on February 22nd. And again, Co-Urbanize, for those who aren't familiar, is a public engagement website that allows interested residents or anybody really to follow a project, give their feedback, and get direct updates about the project. So really trying to be transparent and upfront about what's going on. People have a right to know about what's going on in their neighborhood. So this is a tool that we use to do that. That being said, some of the early comments were about the parking ratios. I believe that's been a consistent comment. Additionally, I think the concern of increased traffic is just a comment that's heard pretty often in projects. And just reflects, I think, a concern around traffic safety in general. Overall, though, Urbanize was able to generate us a report, which we shared with the Landmark staff, and they could provide to you all. There were 198 comments left on Urbanize, 35% of which were positive, 48% of which were neutral, and 17% which were negative. And Urbanize has a way to analyze whether a comment is negative or positive. Also, the project received over 2,000 views on Urbanize. So that is all to say there's been a lot of community input and a lot of community process. I think this project overall has had some pretty positive feedback more recently as well. So thank you.
Thank you for that summary. We will then open the floor up. I'm sorry, staff review next.
Madam Chair, I'll add in public comment that we received in the office. We received 13 comments specific to 50 West, 9 in support and 4 not in support. Some of the comments also report to the 45 West project, and those will not be included in the summary. Comments in support of the project noted revitalization of the neighborhood, investment in the neighborhood, affordable housing, and a bike-friendly development, and support for filling gaps along the way. Comments with concerns for the project noted the amount of units and lack of multiple bedroom units, traffic concerns, equitable housing solutions to the neighborhood, parking ratio, Juliet balconies, removing the penthouse pergola that was agreed upon a previous rendition, and questions on the impact of the urban community school next door, as well as concerns on the vinyl windows and siding, height, and appropriate density for the neighborhood. So on the previous slide, it had the comments that we received and the dates that we received.
All right. Thank you for that summary and report. We'll now open the floor up to the commission for questions and comments.
Staff has some additional, for our staff report.
I'm sorry.
We feel that this has been a great improvement overall, and staff would like to thank the applicants for receiving feedback and making the adjustments from what we first saw. And through this process, this has been a very good conversation. Staff disagrees with the local committee and feels that vinyl products could be appropriate on the interior facades, but aluminum clad windows in the historic buildings, composite or fiberglass on the primary facades of the new construction would be appropriate. We still like to see some adjustments in Champion Corner because there still seems to be some competition between the old and the new addition at that one. The French or Juliet balconies still feel inappropriate on the primary facade on the Lorraine. We would still prefer bay windows, which could allow more light and break up the facade a little bit more. And then we would like to see submittal of any engineer's reports for the facade stabilization and the process for the restoration of the contributing buildings on the site. We do support the demolitions. The one is out of our purview, and the other one, it is quite old, but yeah, I think it's the higher and better use at this point for the removal of that one.
All right, thank you for that additional report. We'll now open up the floor for the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off?
Here, I'll raise my hand. It's Bob Strickland. I went on the site visit in late March, and I would agree that the existing structures proposed for demolition really are not, they do not contribute to the historical fabric in the neighborhood. And I don't think there's even an element of the one house on Lorraine that would be consideration for salvage. So I would highly support the demolition of both proposed structures. And I commend the applicant for the adjustments that have been made based on the multiple comments that they've received. I would like to get the applicant's reaction to some of the additional comments from design review that apparently have not been adjusted at this point, like the infield panels going from hardy to masonry. Is that under consideration?
Hi, everyone. So part of the reason for the hardy panels under the windows is for HVAC ventilation. Instead of having holes in the brick side of it, that's where we'll be using for grills and returns.
Okay.
So there's a functional
Understood.
purpose to it.
All right. And Carl, you made a comment about the, I think the chamfer on the that corner element. What is the concern there at a staff level?
It kind of feels like it competes, and you see how we're looking at it, and it's noticeable here. And we had brought that up before, and can you make that new kind of match it a little bit and tie into it better? If not, but that was one of our considerations.
Yeah, I personally don't have a problem with how they've integrated the new construction overall with the existing structures that they're rehabbing. So I think it's a wonderful project, incredibly exciting to see this level of development proceeding west on Lorraine Avenue. And I just think it's going to really activate that section of Lorraine and be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. So I'm highly supportive of the project as presented.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Edmond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would reiterate those comments, and I agree with Mr. Strickland that I think the massing here vis-a-vis the existing building is okay. And I appreciate the applicant really, taking to heart and responding to a lot of the comments. I think one of the other comments that you responded to that you may not have mentioned was the changing of the color of the recessed higher area. I think this is a big improvement. I'm also glad you said the white area is not going to be white. It's going to be the taupe color, because I think the white just doesn't work with the other things you're doing here. I think if it is feasible to do the bay windows on the Lorraine facade as staff suggested, I think that would really be a nice finishing touch on the composition of this north elevation. It would also be a nice, amenity in the apartments as well. So I would strongly suggest you consider that. On the interior elevations, I understand that vinyl, it's maybe acceptable there because it's not really a visible facade. I would try to discourage that just from a durability and building performance standpoint. And so those are my comments. I do have one question, which is regarding the garage. Is the garage naturally ventilated or mechanically ventilated?
It's an open air garage.
Okay, so there's no mechanical exhaust coming out of that somewhere. Okay. Thank you. Those are my comments, and I agree with Mr. Strickland too. This is a really nice development to see. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Not seeing any other comments. I will state mine. I echo what's been.
Oh, I got my hand up.
Yeah, Ms. Anderson is.
All right, it's really hard to see on the screen. When it comes up. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson. I can hold mine. Go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate that the applicant is maintaining those two buildings on the corner. I'm really happy to see that he's incorporating more brick on the front facade. And I'm happy to see that those white panels are going to be changed to above. I do agree with staff and some of the other commission members that I think of bay windows would really enhance the facade of the building. And again, I think if we go for programming, I think people would, like the increased light in their units. I am still uncomfortable with the massing and the scale overall. We've lost a lot of buildings probably in the last 15, 20 years in that area, which I gave them more concrete feel to what the original massing scale was in that area. And I think this is large. The only thing that probably mitigates that is you have other large structures in the urban community school campus. I think if this was another block of Lorraine, I wouldn't support it. Kind of reluctantly supporting it, but I do think the massing is too great for this district. I think it should have been broken up a little more. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I guess my comments are, I echo much of what had been said today about the Juliet versus bay windows, supporting the bay windows, supporting the discussion of exploring composite windows for its primary elevation along Lorraine. My only new comment would be related to the trellis and the question of, does the trellis pass over the glass handrail, and is it supported on the parapet of the existing building, or is that just a rendering? Is that just not rendering correctly, and will that trellis be set back from the primary elevation and or the glass handrail?
Yes, apologies for that. That will be set back from the parapet, from the glass handrail. That should not be shown extending to the edge like that. But yes, that will be supported off of whatever reinforcing structure we put within the building, and not off of the edge of the building. So yes, that'll be set back more.
Perfect. I would encourage it to be at least 4 feet back, just to also reduce the visibility of it. Right now, it does become a primary element on that little area versus sort of recessing to the background, like I believe your intentions are. But overall, I'm in support of the project. I do like to see this development continue down Lorraine, and especially this area that has so much moving forward with it. I think it's a good addition to the neighborhood. Other questions and comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, it just occurred to me, we haven't heard any explanation of any proposed signage or exterior lighting. I wonder if that's yet to come, or have you developed that to any extent?
I believe that right now the idea is for the signage to be primarily along the that band right over the storefront along the front, and there would be some leniency depending on the tenants to generate what their individual signage would appear, or how it would appear. For the actual building signage, it'll probably be set over the canopy at the main entrance along the front, toward the front, with stylized lettering set forward there.
Do you require that to be submitted?
I would recommend signage, creating a signage master plan for the whole complex would probably be a good idea, and then maybe return with lighting. Maybe a lighting plan as well. That might be something we can do as staff, and if it's something that we don't feel is appropriate or needs more work, we can bring it back to the commission.
The same with signage at staff?
Yeah, signage, yeah.
Yeah.
Signage should be submitted at a future date as a comprehensive package, once you've determined that.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah. Each one would come to us individually as it comes, but if you have a master plan, they know exactly what their parameters are, and they can be creative within that signage plan, but where they put it and how they, that type of stuff would be.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Councilwoman Gray's hand is up.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilman Gray.
Yes, this is not my expertise, but I just want to say that how extraordinary this project is going to be developed on the west side of town. And I just, for what I'm able to see, it's going to look, absolutely beautiful. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did not see any additional comments. And thank you, Mr. Brunges and Mr. Musson, if I miss it in the room itself. Then would someone like to put forward a motion related to the demolition? Mr. Dryer.
Just to clarify, we only need a motion on the one building, not on both?
Correct.
Okay, so I will make the motion for demolition of the little white building, I guess it is.
Do we have an address? Do we need the address, Mr. Musson or Mr. Brunges, for that, or do you have it?
Yeah, it'd probably be helpful. 5107 Lorraine.
Okay.
So we have a motion to approve the demolition of 5701 Lorraine. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that you, Mr. Edmund?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion. We have a second by Mr. Edmund. Do we have further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion for demolition passes unanimously.
Excellent, thank you. We'll move on to approval for the new construction. Any further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the project as presented with a stipulation that composite windows be used in the existing structure to be renovated, and that the applicant consider the use of bay windows as a substitute for the Juliet balconies along Lorraine, and that the any signage program and exterior lighting be presented to staff, with staff making a determination whether it has to come back to the commission or not.
So we have motion, and one clarification: was the window related to the existing building, or is that related to the new construction, or both?
Was there a discussion about the window material for the new construction?
You had recommended aluminum clad for the existing, and that they upgrade vinyl that proposed on the primary facades.
Oh, they're proposing
either a fiberglass.
Right. This, yeah, I would like to see at a minimum composite windows for the new construction, as well as
for the primary facades.
For the primary facade.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
This is Carter, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Redmond. We have a second. Any further discussion related to the new construction? Not seeing any on my side. Hi, Mr. Musson and Mr. Prentice, can you confirm? No other on your side?
No other comments here.
Okay, then please call roll and announce results.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes. Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your feedback.
We'll then move on to our next applicant located at 2183-85 Cornell Road Residence demolition.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I'm Kevin Oliver with Oliver Architecture. We're the architects for the project. As was mentioned, the first part of this project is demolition of 2 existing residential buildings on the site. And we're proposing a new 14-unit multifamily building to take their place. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is the aerial view, kind of highlighting the location of our site. This image is before the completion of the Baricelli apartments adjacent to us, but you can sort of see our relationship to the rail lines, UH and Case Western. If you go to the next slide, please. These are photos of the existing conditions on the street. The top left corner is the 2 existing residential buildings with Baricelli apartments to their right, and then continuing to go to Baricelli apartments up to Murray Hill, and kind of the rest of the contact existing residential buildings on the street as well. Go to the next slide, please. So this slide shows the 2 existing residences, and there are no current trees on the site. The rest of the site is paved. The proposed demolition is for the 2 residences and the utility garage towards the rear of the site. Next slide, please. When we do that process, we're proposing to salvage, there's a few items that we'd like to salvage out of that demolition. So the 2183's front door, there's 2 interior doors that are original to the homes. Any original door casings that are still in the homes, they've all been modified over time within, I think, during the site visit, some of the photos we've seen that previously. Sandstone steps that exist, foundation blocks that can be salvaged, and basement joists that are in any condition to be salvaged. We propose to do that as well. Next slide, please. So our proposed new building is 3 stories, 14 units, and we've located it to the western side of the site so that our driveway is parallel to Baricelli Inn's driveway, recognizing that we're facing Random Road and having our tuck under parking sort of correspond to Baricelli's seemed to make the most sense. We do have a first floor units. If you go to the next slide, sort of zooms in a little bit, so that we do have a front-facing unit with a patio and landscaping at Cornell Road, and then the tuck under parking is shown here. We have 15 parking spaces for the 14 units. 1 parking space anticipated that during the winter months is where snow can be piled and accommodated. We have interior bike storage, mailbox located up front adjacent to the building, tucked in with some of the landscaping and the patio there. Next slide, please. Again, going through the unit plans, a mixture of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. Some of the utility spaces are shown on this first floor here. The patios at the first floor units, small, but they face the west area as well. Next slide. Again, second floor units. Next slide, please. And third floor. And our roof line. So the roof lines incorporate a number of gables and shed roofs. We're proposing standing seam metal roof on the shed components and the asphalt shingles on the balance of the roofs there. Go to the next slide, please. So a mixture of fiber cement siding and brick is proposed for the exterior. So we have an off-white fiber cement siding with a brick masonry base. So this is the facade that, in a sense, faces the elevation that's towards Random Road. Go to the next slide, please. And then this elevation shows the areas of the tuck under parking that faces the Baricelli apartments. Next slide. And then to the left is the front porch facade that faces Cornell Road, combination of masonry and columns in there, vertical pickets, balusters on the railings, and then the image on the right is the rear elevation. Again, there's the 3rd floor balcony area with the utility area down below to the bottom right of that elevation there as well. Next slide, please. So this, again, I think we've seen this before, but this is the section cut through Cornell showing our relation to Baricelli, Wolfpack course adjacent to us. We're proposing a McAvoy full range Medex brick, sort of a reddish rusty color. Doesn't match exactly the brick used next door, but sort of keeping in the same reddish brick tones. Fiber cement siding with fiber cement trim. Fiber cement trim around the windows. We're proposing aluminum clad wood windows. You can see sort of up on the top right, those called out. We're proposing white when those windows fall within fiber cement areas, trimmed with white, and then using black when it falls within the brick masonry portions of the elevation as well. Next slide, please. This image shows some of the brick details we're proposing. So double soldier courses, flat arches, as well as the exterior light fixtures for the illumination of our drive area, as well as the illumination at the exterior balconies. Next slide, please. And then again, our section cuts, that the top one cuts through Cornell Road to the residential homes across the other side, sort of showing the transition from the street to the tree lawn to the sidewalk to our yard, our balconies, and then the mass of the building itself. And then likewise, the lower section cutting to show what that looks like when you're cutting through Random Road, our building in Baricelli to the right of it there as well. Next slide, please. This is our certification that there are no existing trees on the site, so we're not removing any trees. Go to the next slide, we get into landscape, I believe. So we're proposing to add 3 trees within the tree lawn area, as well as landscaping up in the front and along the side in between the patios on the Random Road facing side of the building as well. So we actually have a slight net decrease of impervious area on the site versus what's there today. So again, our driveway down to the bottom of our site reduces the existing curb cut, which currently is the entire width of the parcel. So the sidewalk will start sooner and it won't be an entire curb cut the full width of the parcel. Next slide, please. Again, landscape details. Next. Just some context images of other residential buildings in the neighborhood with various porch, baluster styles, some of the combination of masonry, fiber cement, wood look that we're implementing, and the prevalence of the vertical balusters. That was feedback we received from the community that they did want this to be a little more traditional with the handling of those railings and balusters. Next slide, please. And this is the rendering if you're coming west on Cornell Road, sort of seeing the front porch elements and the tuck under parking there. And you can kind of see to the right where the driveway changes tone slightly. That's Baricelli, their drive, and our driveway to the left. The rendering does make the siding look totally white. It is not totally white, so we would have the off-white siding with white windows, doors, and trim on them there. And I believe that's it. So I'm happy to answer questions and continue.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with design review recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was discussed a few weeks ago at the design review committee. The new construction was approved as presented. There was some discussion about adding more brick. There was some discussion about the concern about extra parking being needed. However, the Baricelli project is currently underparked, and they are marketing some of their spaces for use there. So I believe we discussed a little bit about the possibility of any additional parking being used next door. There was some concern about the demolitions, about the buildings being lost and the project not moving forward. So the motion was to recommend approval of the demolition with the condition that they not occur until financing has been secured and landmark sign off on the final construction drawings. Then we could also sign off on the demolition at that time, still allowing them to move forward with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment summary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for public comment, we received 8 comments to our office, 6 in support and 2 not in support. Comments in support of the project noted appreciation for listening to community comments, design appropriateness for the neighborhood, density, and reference to other projects completed by the developers in the neighborhood. Comments with concerns for the project noted the condition of the existing homes with a preference for repair over demolition, parking, and the appropriateness of design elements such as the brick, the porches, and the lack of outdoor gathering space.
Thank you. And staff report.
Madam Chair, before we move to staff report, I believe Joe Marinucci from Little Italy Redevelopment Corporation is here. If you'd like to add any comments at this time.
Oh, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Marinucci.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to echo the fact that our local design review committee did review the project and made recommendations to the Landmarks Commission, and we are comfortable going forward on the basis of those recommendations.
Thank you for that feedback. Now staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just as a reminder, this is another one of those projects where we will need two motions, one for the demolition, then one for the approval of the new construction. That being said, staff is never really happy about demolitions and losing buildings that contribute to our historic districts. We'd really like to see at least one of these buildings saved somehow. That being said, we feel this is a creative solution to an interesting site. Our only real issue with the current design is that we'd recommend removing the gooseneck lighting and replacing those with can lights along the side of the building. Ultimately, staff agrees with the recommendations of the design review committee.
All right, thank you for that summary. Then we will open up the floor for the commission for questions and comments. I'll begin us today. I guess on this one, I do think this is creative solution for integrating more units on the site and making the massing of the development appear similar to what is currently on the site. My only question is, I guess, a few details on the Random Road side, which I believe is the north side. Is that correct? Is that there's a wood fence on the site? Will that be maintained there? Is there circulation between the concrete areas or outside all of these sliding doors? I'm a little confused right there on the approach here, since this will be visible.
Sure. So there won't be circulation between, each set of doors has its corresponding patio area outside. It's a 5-foot patio, but the landscaping would be installed between those so that there isn't a circulation path leading from front to back along the length of the building there. I believe the fence is on the adjacent parcel's property currently. And I think, Carmen, you had some discussions about with them about what might happen there or how our landscaping would come in to screen or not screen from parking.
Sure. So yeah, just to verify, the wooden horizontal fencing is on the neighboring property. It's part of the retail restaurant of Wolfpack Chorus. So we don't have control over that fencing. Our discussions with the owner of the restaurant, obviously were to keep the fencing, maintain it, help however we can so that there is some screening and privacy for our first floor residents. And as Kevin alluded to, we do have some landscaping in between the patios to offer the residents a little bit more privacy on their exterior aspects. So it's not intended by any means to be a walkway on the side of the building.
And are those the gooseneck lights in between each one of those or adjacent to each one of those patio doors?
Those are the lantern types. The gooseneck lights are proposed on the driveway side. It's here on this elevation that's being shown now.
Got it. Okay. I would agree with staff that I think the goosenecks don't really add as much to your design as is I think desire to simplifying it there into a soffit light would be probably as effective and have less spill into the adjacent property. Overall, though, I am in support of the project and appreciate your creativity to try to make it work within this site. Other questions and comments from the commission?
All right.
This is Bob Strickland. I was on the site visit to this site earlier in the year. And my takeaway is that the renovations that have been done previously to the front of the existing homes, I would say completely destroyed the historic character of that primary facade on Cornell. So based on that, I really don't have a problem with the demolition of those two structures. And, but I think it's good to have that salvage plan for those elements that were identified. And I would make that a stipulation as part of the demolition approval that those salvage items be maintained. As far as the new structure, I think it's appropriate. The only thing that I would comment on is the massing, the massiveness, I would say, of the front column supporting that porch on Cornell. I just think that they're, even shown in the rendering, they're just so massive. If those could be scaled back or even an alternate design for that porch facing Cornell, I think that would be an improvement for the project. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson also had her hand up.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Normally, I'm in alignment with the staff recommendations, but I totally cannot support the demolition of these two contributing structures. It's on the site visit, and I've been in many structures that were in much worse condition that have been saved, renovated, and turned into beautiful, desirable homes. I've worked with people in the past in places like Ohio City, who bought houses that were, pretty ramshackle, pretty unassuming, not very attractive. They were not able to demolish them because of the historic district and because of the contributing nature of those properties. I feel very much the same way about these properties. They were not in that bad condition. I've seen houses gutted by fire that have been renovated in other historic districts. So I don't support this at all. In fact, it really concerns me because any properties in this area, which is a highly desirable rental area, any properties that sit on a large parcel are probably subject to this kind of treatment, where frankly these properties are worth more dead than alive. So I am very distressed about this, and I absolutely cannot support it. I want to say further that I did support the demolition of the two structures for the Verricelli apartments, and I regret that vote. I really regret supporting the demolition of contributing structures, and I cannot support that here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other feedback from the commission? All right, I'm not seeing any online. I don't see anything on the screen either from the room. Would someone like to put forward a motion first related? Go ahead.
Councilmember Gray has her hand up.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Councilman Gray.
Yes, Madam Chair, I wasn't on the site visit and I'm just kind of perplexed about this project. Could I go back and ask Ms. Bean to restate the comments from the public, could I do that, please? So I can have a better understanding of what the public comments were pertaining to the project.
Of course, Ms. Bean, would you mind viewing those again?
Yeah, absolutely. There were comments in support that noted appreciation for listening to community comments, design appropriateness for the neighborhood, in support with the density and reference to other projects completed by the developers in the neighborhood. Comments with concerns for the project noted the condition of the existing homes, with a preference for repair over demolition, the parking that is proposed, and the appropriateness of design elements such as the brick, the porches, and the lack of outdoor gathering space.
And Jessica, what did you say that the ratio was of comments positive versus negative?
So 6 were in support and 2 were not in support. About 4 of those came from the Little Italy Block Club meeting that this project was presented to.
6 in favor and 2 opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And if you remember, this was a much larger mass building. It was at 4 stories, and they did reduce it. And Mr. Musson and I attended the unveiling of the Guardians historic marker there in Little Italy, and they're listening to the discussion. I overheard, I can say this, that they did overhear that people were happier with and they were happy that they listened to this. And I'm not in favor of demolition, Ms. Anderson point as well. But they did submit and I believe we shared it, the construction estimates for what it would cost to rehab them. And I believe when we look at cost prohibitiveness and we look at viability, such like that, and you are correct, things that have been much worse have come back. So we're kind of staying neutral on the demolition. We're just saying, here it is, this is part of it, but because of the design quality and what's being proposed, we feel that it is appropriate so that and this is why when we take these votes, we should take the vote on the new construction first, because if that doesn't pass, the demolition becomes moot. And then we don't need to take a vote on demolition. And I would recommend that as how we proceed on this, take on the new construction first. It's a good suggestion.
Yeah, great suggestion, Mr. Prentice. Okay. Other questions and comments related to the project from the commission? Right, then, would someone like to make a motion related to the new construction? I'm not seeing it in my chat chopped out. I'm sorry, let me reopen it.
Can we have a review of the recommendations from the design review committee?
They said recommended as approved, and they said add more discussion, adding more brick, especially to the sides. And our discussion with staff, it didn't seem like that would be appropriate. So, but in general, they were in favor. There was some concern about screening on the side. But as presented.
So, Madam Chair, I would move to approve the project for the new construction as presented with a substitute fixture for the gooseneck fixture along the driveway at the garage entrance, and that the applicant study the brick configuration, particularly at the front porches, to try to scale down the massive masonry columns supporting that front porch.
Thank you. We have a motion with conditions. Do we have a second?
This is Carter. I second that.
Good, thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any online. Any addition in the room?
None here.
Okay, then Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce results.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Dryer?
No.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
You can say as well.
Yeah, I will abstain.
abstention. Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes 4-2 with one abstention.
Excellent. All right, then we'll move forward with, would someone like to put forward a motion related to the demolition?
I'll move to approve the demolition with the stipulation that the salvage items noted be retained.
And do you want to entertain the design review's recommendation that the demolition cannot occur until final financing is in place and approval of the new construction?
Yes, with that stipulation as well.
We have a motion with conditions. Do we have a second? We have a motion on the table. Would someone like to, related to the demolition, would someone like to second it?
This is Carter, I'll second that.
All right, thank you. We have a second by Mr. Edmund. Any further discussion? All right.
None here.
None seen. Thank you. None seen online either. So Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce results.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
No.
Mr. Dreyer,
No.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
I'm abstaining again.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes again, 4 no and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll move on to our concept plan review. We have one today. It's located at 2110 Fairview Avenue renovation. Mr. Maddox, I think that is you. There's a lot of background noise on your side from my end.
Okay, let me try to quiet it here a little bit. Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you better.
Okay, great. I'll lean in a little bit. How about that?
That would be great.
Yeah, so this is an existing 8-unit apartment building at the corner of Murray Hill and Fairview. It's a nice, solid brick structure. It's been unloved for a few years, so it's got a little bit of age that it's showing. My client, Eric Kennedy, wants to renovate this building and make it a single-family residence. He currently lives in the Murray Hill School building, loves the neighborhood, loves the hill, loves everything about it, and wants to invest in the property. And he wants to make it for his primary residence. This is not a development move for someone else, but is for him to live in himself. It's a very solid, pretty brick building, and it's got some great potential for turning it into this residence. Fairview is a one-way street, starting at Murray Hill and wrapping around it. So it's got sort of 3 street frontages because it's a unique location on this corner. We are proposing a fairly light touch to the renovation and improvement of this building. It needs some significant work. Could we go to the next slide, please? So the sort of the context views here, the bottom left photo which is labeled western corner, shows the Murray Hill side of the building. It's the one to the right with the white porch on the front. And as you wrap around the building, the Fairview Avenue side looking southwest shows the long dimension of the building with the balconies cut in, as well as the context around it. There's a lot of red brick and a lot of similar massing of structures around it. And what we're proposing is maintaining the shape and the window fenestration patterns as they exist now, but improving them in a couple different significant ways. The one requirement for making this building feasible for my client is to introduce indoor parking into the building. And there's not many great ways to accomplish that, with the exception of carving in a garage space on the eastern corner of the building. The top right photograph there shows a car parked on the sidewalk and sort of the narrow end of the building. This is the corner that we want to, we're going to cut in a garage into this face of the building. The other elevations are so prominent. The one facing Murray Hill, it's a beautiful sort of front yard space with a porch and a balcony. We're going to maintain that. The long elevation has sort of nice proportion about it, has a nice fenestration pattern. It's got some balconies cut in that are beautiful. And this face, as we turn the corner, is largely the backside to all these buildings or lots. All the properties for the next 4 or 5 have either either a garage space or open parking or another garage space. So this felt like this was the best opportunity to do this. Could we skip down a couple? So this is a site plan illustrating where the building sits on the site. The residence and the garage that are the lighter gray are the neighboring properties. And what we're illustrating here is how we would propose to cut in a garage and basically where a driveway would occur in relationship to the corner. This has been preliminarily through the PETBOT review, and they didn't have any significant concerns about affecting curb cuts and affecting traffic patterns on this corner. It's a wide radius turn, and it fits their requirements. So we don't have any major traffic concerns or safety concerns by doing this. We can skip down to the next. So this is just for reference sake. This is sort of a preliminary floor plan that we're developing. We're maintaining a main front entrance on the long elevation, the Fairview side. It's marked by sort of a half round brick pattern right now. We're maintaining all the window locations and proportions. We're going to replace windows. They've been replaced at some point in their life with white vinyl, and it's sort of a hodgepodge of window replacements that have been gone on there. But we're going to replace them with the consistent window pattern all the way through. And this also shows how we plan to, or propose to, incorporate a garage space in the right side of the plan there. So the first floor is largely entry and some exercise space, and then a couple of bedrooms. And then the next slide sort of indicates the upper level plan. We're going to have a great room that faces Murray Hill side. Murray Hill is on the left-hand side of this plan, and Fairview is on the bottom and the right side. Sort of a main living area and main stair there, dining, and then master bedroom on the back side over the garage area. And then we're also going to incorporate a penthouse roof access form that's on the next plan. Do you want to skip to the next plan, please? So we're proposing a rooftop office and a little bit of clear story light into the dining room and some rooftop access for a patio and plantings up there. If we can skip to the next elevation. So we've explored colors and ideas for this. We're maintaining the brick, tuck pointing, repairing as necessary. It's pretty solid and pretty well done now. but it needs a little bit of love, repairing some of the parapet caps and replacing. It currently has two rooftop stairs that sort of angle up and provide access. We'll remove those and replace with this penthouse type structure. Where you see the balconies inset there, for all of the long facades and the street facing facades, we're maintaining the existing brick openings with their sandstone heads and sandstone sills. And then at the balconies, we're proposing a slightly more open fenestration than what's there. At the balconies recess in about 5 feet or so, and we're proposing at that point to have more of a glassy door system that provides more openings. And that would continue on up into this penthouse structure that we're proposing at the top. At the highest point, our parapet is about 28 feet above grade at the close to the Murray Hill side, the existing parapet. And we're proposing the penthouse would probably go up about 8 feet higher than that, roughly 36 feet to the top of it, which is within code requirements to do. It does sit back roughly 6 feet from the primary brick facade, so its impact at the street level is minimized by that setback, and definitely becomes sort of subservient to the main brick mass of the building. I think there's one more elevation at the front, maybe the next. Yeah. So we've looked at color studies and looked at ideas for that. Our initial thought was to kind of go dark with the windows. Right now they're white, and it's an uncomfortable, harsh contrast to the red brick building. Our initial thought was to go sort of bronzy and go dark. And then as we've studied it more, we've decided to go to a softer color pattern that reflects the stone. Our window frames and our trim that we're going to be introducing will all more closely match the stone lintels and stone heads, so that it provides more of a less jarring elevation, sort of a softer look that coordinates well. The bottom right view there, the two bottom views kind of show where we propose to do the garage on that back side and realign the upper floor windows there. And what's shown for reference is the proximity of the neighbor, which is actually a red brick garage, but it's shown as white just to show it for context there. So what we're proposing is not out of character with the neighborhood and without the existing street fronts. And I think there's just one more close-up front elevation. So the changes on this are sort of the glass doors in the balcony that's set back. We will change the rail systems to be more of probably more of an aluminum system rather than the carpentered wood and balusters that are sort of falling apart now. And the other piece that we've done is we've introduced a half round window above the main entrance door. Currently, there's a brick and sandstone arch that's bricked in right now, and we're keeping the arch shape and the structure itself, and then infilling it to create a window that connects better to the second floor there. It's a fun project. It's super important for the owner that he wants to maintain the fabric of the city and maintain the existing structures rather than tearing down and starting fresh. And I think we're onto something pretty interesting here. I appreciate your comments and questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to design review recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Little Italy Design Review Committee reviewed this on May 23rd, and they were very happy to thrill the project, as they are keeping most of the exterior. They like the lighter color scheme. Excuse me. They are happy to see that there would be a reduction in the parking needs of the neighborhood and that this would be an owner-occupied house. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received one phone call comment in support of the renovation. And I'd also like to note the applicant mentioned that the project went to PETFOD, which is important just because they're introducing a garage into the side of the building. So some of the notes from PETFOD stated that the ADA access needs to be maintained to the sidewalks and a 5-foot sidewalks. A 5-foot sidewalk is required to be maintained in that space. Removing the sidewalk and placing grass is allowed as long as the 5-foot sidewalk is maintained and connected to HCR sidewalks. They did recommend contacting safety and Cleveland Water about water usage needs and safety for the site.
All right, thank you. And staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a lovely building. Staff does have some concerns about removing 8 units of presumably affordable housing and replacing that with a single-family dwelling. There are many formerly single-family homes in the neighborhood that have been cut up and subdivided over the years, converted into multifamily homes. It seems like converting one of those back to a single unit might make more sense than converting a building that was constructed originally as multifamily. We also have some issues with removing what was essentially the front door of the building and replacing it with the garage door, especially right at the corner. It's a challenging project given that it really has 3 fronts, and I guess the only thing you could consider the rear of the property abuts the neighboring property, like right on the property line. So there are no real practical opportunities for off-street parking here, in our opinion.
I lost sound there. Mr. Musson, were you complete?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I don't know if I lost sound for a second. All right, thank you for that report. Then any other community or staff attendees that need to speak before we move on to the commission?
Madam Chairperson, again, this is Joe Marinucci. I just want to echo the recommendation that the positive recommendation that was received through the local design review committee. I think the committee was pleased and supportive of the project.
Thank you, Ms. Marinucci. Then we will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Edmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's always difficult, or it's always a challenge for architects to not do too much. And I think you've shown very wise restraint in this. I have one question. Over the door on Fairview that's going to be the new main entry, there's currently sort of a neoclassical scroll and then a cornice detail above that door. Are you keeping that? In the rendering, it looks like it's sort of 2 blocks.
Yeah, our intent is to maintain what's there.
Okay.
It's rendering. Yeah.
Okay, so that's just for the rendering. Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely prefer the lighter scheme. I think it's much more friendly to the street. I also like that you're opening up under that sort of tympanum under the arch, and that's going to be sort of light up high over the entry, and also the clerestory from the penthouse over the dining room. I think given all the garage doors and everything that are on Fairview, I don't have a problem with the garage door there. It looks like that's actually currently sort of a rear entrance. I mean, I don't know which entrances are used the most, but I think the face of the building, the front of the building is the Murray Hill facade. And you probably just haven't gotten to this yet, but I think you're not doing a lot to that facade, which I think is good. But I think the landscaping there is going to be really important to for that relationship to the street. So I think that needs to be done very thoughtfully. I have one other sort of practical question. It looks like and I'm looking at the Google Street View right now. It looks like the windows sort of step up as it moves south. Are the floors all level, or do the floors step up but the windowsill heights vary?
No, it's pretty interesting that they are, the floor units do step, and we're taking that opportunity to create some interest inside on that, on the main living area by stepping the dining room up from the kitchen area. We're maintaining the window relationships to the floors that they currently exist on. So we'll be maintaining the various floor levels that exist.
Okay. I think it is interesting that this is going to single family, as was mentioned, that some other single family dwellings are being split up. I don't think it is necessarily material that this is happening. While that's happening, I think this is interesting, though. I think I really dig this project. I'm very jealous of the owner. I think you've shown, as I say, wise restraint here. And this is a building that you just kind of look past right now, but I think you've made it very handsome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Other questions and comments from the commission? Ms.
Anderson has her hand up.
Just have it's kind of a minor detail. The Fairview elevation, there's an existing front door that we're talking about. Is that door there, and are you going to maintain what's there, or is this a change? I see there's side lights and a door, correct?
Correct. So there, because it's an 8-unit building, there's various entrances to the apartments. So the actual street address is on the narrow side of the Fairview, where we're introducing the new garage door. So technically the 2110 address is for the door that's facing that side. But the side that you're looking at right now with the front door and the half round window above it is a more prominent street front elevation, and that will be that is an existing door, and that will be our main front door to the building. It feels like it's the more prominent and more appropriate front elevation for the main entrance.
Okay. I do think you exercised some restraint here, and I'm glad like the penthouse area is kind of stepped back, so hopefully it will be that's noticeable from the street. It's gonna be a cool house.
We think so.
Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions or comments?
I'll make a comment that I agree. I think it's a very cool house as well, and I like the more buff color, the lighter tones rather than the dark configuration that was first presented. But yeah, I think it's an attractive house. Now it looks like there's a decorative fence on the west corner. Are there any openings or gates in that fence leading towards that lawn area to that facade?
There's a sidewalk. You can kind of see it on that western corner view. We kind of clipped it off in the rendering, but currently there is a gate that leads to that sidewalk that leads to the front. We'll thoroughly explore the landscape potential of that corner. That is just showing kind of what's there now.
All right. Yeah, I think it's a great project.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I guess I echo much of what my fellow commission members have said. I think it's a really interesting project. I do see staff's position about the elimination of of housing within this area versus in converting it to a single family home, where typically we're having the reverse conversation. I think you've shown a lot of creativity, though, to try to maintain the existing architecture. But in this conversion, I think the garage on I'll call it the rear, but the eastern corner, is creative, and because it does feel like the back of the building, because there's not really a back of the building, but I would say that I would encourage you to study how that would work in relationship to the 5-foot sidewalk, and can you get a car clear of that coming in or out of, the sidewalk. That would be, obviously, safety is important to maintain here, and or if there's the ability, since there is so much concrete in that area, to use something like a grasscrete or something to give you a little bit of to soften the feeling of that being a garage area.
Sure. One of the points that I kind of didn't make was that we are recessing that garage door back from the facade of the building a bit, so it will be deeper set and kind of respect the existing facade a bit. And that also gives us the benefit of giving us a little bit more space between the door itself and the street. We'll explore that paving material, whether it's a grasscrete or maybe, on our renderings, we've indicated some planting areas flanking the driveways that maintain, kind of that transition area between the sidewalk and the building itself to kind of soften it. But we'll explore the materiality of what that driveway is going to look like, and whether it's maybe a paver or whether it's a grasscrete. I'm not sure about that for full-time everyday parking, but something to explore and soften that facade a bit, I think is a great idea.
I think that would help the project and really change that area of the road, since right now it looks like many people do park on that, and really taking that back for more of the public green space.
It will improve. There's usually a car parked on the sidewalk there when we go there.
Right, that's what I'm looking at in Google Earth.
Yeah.
So, those are my only comments.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Since this was a concept plan only, we will not be taking a vote today. Does the applicant feel like you've received enough feedback from the commission to continue on with your design?
I feel that we have. Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Cool. Thanks.
That concludes our concept plan reviews. We'll move on to meeting minute approvals. We have 4 meeting minutes that were forwarded for review. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the meeting minutes? Or someone like to put forward a motion?
I'll move to approve. I'll move to approve the minutes from February 25th, 2021, December 9th, 2021, July 28th, 2022, and May 11th, 2023.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Carter. I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Edmund. We have a second. Any further discussion?
None here.
Not seeing any online. None there. All right. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer? Mr. Edmund?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trasick? Or he must have stepped out. And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion to approve the minutes passes unanimously.
Excellent. Move on to administrative reports.
Not much here. We have the Seabright Terrace demo site visit scheduled for Monday. You should have all gotten emails about that. We had a few technical difficulties with our first real hybrid meeting here. I'd like to thank the commission members who made it down to City Hall today. While we're ironing out the issues on our end, we'll be here in hybrid for the foreseeable future, so we'd be happy to see any commission members that can make it in person for our June 22nd meeting, and the rest moving forward.
All right, excellent. All right. Well, then if there's nothing else for today's meeting, then we will adjourn today and see everyone in 2 weeks.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And overall, I think it was good on the this side. It is a little hard, just like similarly having a group of people present, just seeing when people's hands are up or not and still watch the presentation. So I figured out on my screen just to go to a bigger screen and like just with the applicants more. But that's just one piece of feedback that we'll just have to keep in mind as people are hybrid. Is just making sure that we're in sync from both sides. But overall,
Yeah.
good job, guys.
Was the volume okay? Kevin had sent me a message toward the beginning saying that it was a little garbled. The further away from the mic you went, the harder it was to hear. Is that?
Just need to use your stage voice. Project.
Yes.
Project.
Use your
Enunciate.
outside voice. I think on my side, I think you did well. I could hear everything, but I'm also wearing earbuds, so I think that makes a difference versus a speakerphone on both sides. But I think Carl was probably the only one that was a little bit harder to hear when you were speaking lower in tones.
I've never heard anyone say that before. So.
But overall, it was good. So thank you for everyone, and we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.